According to Wikipedia, the practice of tipping began in Tudor England. In medieval times, tipping was a master-serf custom wherein a servant would receive extra money for having performed superbly well.
Okay.
But that's the key, performing superbly well.
Welcome to Under the Sun Podcast. I'm Ilea.
And I'm Irene. Grab a cup of coffee and your comfiest sweats and join us every Monday as two best friends discuss everything from raising free-range gremlins to business and really everything under the sun.
Let's get started, and thanks for being here.
Well, I want to know from a consumer standpoint.
Welcome to today.
If you're on YouTube, don't look at our shirts from last week.
Yeah, guys, we just kept it
Or
rolling.
Or my coffee cup. Everything's in the same position.
Coffee and poppy.
Burps and sweats.
Is it weird if I put my leg up?
No, go for it.
It's so not a third boob.
Gonna talk about last week, but then we accidentally went on a however long that was tangent of, but we haven't talked in so long. Anyways, we were going to talk about tipping culture because
it's gotten out of hand.
And I work for tips.
I was going to say it means more coming from you because you're in a field who actually like requires tips in a normal fashion.
But also not. I've heard mixed. I've heard mixed reviews from my industry. Some people are starting to say charge to where you don't tip, which I get it. That's with food, but it's a lot. But let's backtrack to who do you tip? Because I, again, have worked for tips for 15 years now. I was never in food service, but have been doing hair for 14 and a half years, give or take. And early on, you live off of tips. Like your paycheck is fine. You get your paycheck, you pay your bills, but you get that every 2 weeks. But when you are 20 and have to get gas to get home, that tip that you get is what puts your gas in your car to get to work the next day until your paycheck comes in, until you save up enough, and then you can function not paycheck to paycheck.
Are hairstylists kind of like servers where you only get paid like $4 an hour or something like that?
No, salons are set up in
like
typically
split.
3 fashions. You can either do hourly, which is what most people do out of school. I did it for maybe 4 months. And then even at like a young girl, I was like, okay, this is not worth it was $8 an hour at the time. $8 an hour is not worth my time. And they were taking advantage of me because I was young and eager to do my job. So that was that. So you either do hourly or you do commission where you don't take anything home unless you have something. So then I moved to a salon where I jumped to that because I know my get it done-ness would kick in. And if I worked hourly, I'd get burnt out. I could see. But I could see if I did commission, I may not make any money one day, but I might make 40 to 50% of everything I took home the next day. Or you rent, which they don't recommend out of school because then you're committed. Like right now, I think I pay more a month to rent my hair studio than I do for the place that I live, which that is crazy. But that's the other thing. You take home 100%, but then you have to pay rent, taxes. You're basically, at the end of it, you're still taking home like a commission. You're just splitting the commission with a landlord versus a salon owner.
Yeah. Not to mention you buy your own product.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. I'm not making like $2 an hour, but when you're commission, I guess your commission, you're still making whatever percentage you've worked out with your employer plus tips. But again, when you're starting out, your paycheck comes in every week or every 2 weeks or however, and the tips are what get you groceries and gas on the way home. So, but I don't tip. It's difficult. I don't usually tip at a coffee shop unless I'm staying there to eat. And even then, if I'm ordering my food and picking up my food and carrying my food and cleaning my plate and putting my plate away, I'm not going to tip.
No. It's like, what's the healthy place? And we go sometime. Something Core Life.
Yeah.
Core Life Eatery. Great food, whatever. But you go through and you stand in line, go through the assembly line, and then they just scoop.
Yeah.
And they're paid an hourly wage. And then you go to the counter and then they flip that thing around. I'm like, how much you want to leave a tip? And I'm like, 0.
Yeah.
And like, at first I was like really off.
Yeah.
I like felt really guilty. And I'm like, no, you didn't do anything to deserve this. Like you standing there doing your job.
The difficult thing is it's hard. It's hard. You would like to think the best of people, but age has had me not thinking the best of people. But and I've heard it, not just because I'm assuming, like I've heard people say, oh, I have heard someone at Starbucks say, yeah, they were really rude to me, so I gave them decaf in their coffee. And I'm like, okay. Or I don't know, if my food is done and they spin it around, I'm more likely to push 0, but that's not fair to me because I'm like guilted and like, not guilted. It's the fear of what if they make my order wrong on purpose, and you would like to not think that way of people. I don't know. Maybe I need a mindset shift, but
no, I mean,
that's where I'm at. But
we live in a very entitled generation.
Like, how dare you? Let me sabotage you.
Like, I deserve tips. Oh my gosh, I deserve $18 an hour for this minimum wage, like really easy job.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who has worked in a restaurant. I have worked as a CNA, literally wiping people's butts. Like, I've done the grunt jobs.
Yep.
Do not get me wrong.
Yeah.
But man, like, I remember being like the to-go order lady. So I was a hostess for a place, and there would be to-go orders, which I would get wrong all the time because they never trained us. And so I would just like push buttons. It was so bad. But then
people would get home and yell at you, not the kitchen.
Yeah, it was just, I was not good at that. But like I remember the manager saying, no, hostesses can't get tips. Like, it's not like you don't do in that time when I was like 17 working there and I'm 30, almost 31.
Yeah.
He was like, it's not, I don't know, etiquette or something to tip to go orders. And I'm like, that makes sense. Like, all I'm doing is I remember thinking like, oh, like, yeah, all I'm doing is grabbing basically like a prepackaged silverware thing.
Yeah.
Putting it in there and some napkins.
Yeah.
And I don't deserve a tip for just.
And you weren't getting $2 an hour. You were getting whatever your hourly rate was. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember being like, yep, that makes sense. Like, I didn't do anything to earn a tip on this. Mm-hmm. And it's just my job to manage this part of it. So it's gotten out of hand. I mean, I feel like I've had it at Chipotle.
On the app, but I don't. It's been so long since I've ordered in person. On the app, it's there, and I always say no. But the other difficult thing too, for me at least, someone that owned a business and had a decently successful business in town, I would go to one coffee shop and I'd go through the drive-through, and instead of like handing you the screen, they would take your card in the window and swipe it inside. Then this little teenage girl would look at you and say, "Would you like to leave a tip?" And I want to say no. I'm in my car. You just swiped my card. I'm not leaving a tip for anybody. But then it's like, well, crap, I'm a business owner in town. And if they start saying, oh, so-and-so doesn't tip, it's like a bad reputation on my hand. But I'm like, guys, so that is the only place I tipped. And it's not willingly. It was begrudgingly out of obligation. That
baristas get paid hourly.
Yeah.
They're not like the reason you started
But the
tipping,
reputation goes crazy.
I don't care.
I did. I had a staff to feed, but... Yeah,
but I don't.
I don't now.
Yeah.
And I have clients who are like, sorry, I can't tip you today. And they feel so bad. And I'm like, you don't have to tip me and I'm going to be fine. And that's, I think, where the difference is. Because there are some stylists
But you also charge your worth.
Right. I charge my worth. But there are stylists who get really offended. So-and-so didn't tip. And I will say, sometimes I do that if the person is extremely difficult and takes more time than is allotted and is really rude, and then they don't tip. I'm like, all of that kindness I gave to you and you're not going to tip. But I have people who are so sweet, who I know, like, they've been with me through a bunch of price increases and are like barely doing what I'm at now. And I'm like, you don't ever have to tip.
Yeah.
And one lady, she always leaves me the same amount of tip every time. And the other day she didn't have enough cash, and I couldn't make change because I didn't have change. And she's like, I'll get the rest next time. I'm like, please don't. This is like, you don't ever feel like you have to tip me. But
that's that's a difference between you knowing your clients well, you know, and being like, I'm going to put the energy into you because like I care about you as like a person and how you look, and it's okay if you don't tip because I'm still going to charge what I'm worth. But also, but the barista that is just making a pre-made mixed drink does not who's getting hourly,
pushing 2 buttons.
Yeah, you don't get
handing
a tip.
You a cup. Yeah.
Or if I like Panera, I don't know. I don't really go to Panera, but like places where you go and you have to go through the line, pick up your food.
They don't bring it to you. They just call your name.
Yeah, you have to go pick it up, and then you have to go put your tray back and sort like recycling.
Yeah, it's like I'm doing everything.
I'm not tipping you for that. Like I'm not leaving a. Yes, someone has to come and wipe the tables, but they're still getting paid an hourly.
Yeah.
It's just gotten out of control.
It has.
Also, inflation is like,
yeah. But I don't necessarily know what the solution is though, because I get the wait staff saying like, well, we don't get I have lots of thoughts on it. I know one server who on Cinco de Mayo made $1,500 in tips in one day.
Wow.
So it's feast or famine, like a lot of things. But they don't get paid a normal livable hourly wage.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, I wouldn't want to be the restaurant owner trying to buy, in this economy, buy food, pay rent, buy toilet paper, things that people don't think about till you own a business, pay staff, and then keep the doors open. But then owners have to pay taxes on tips, which people don't know, it's a whole other long soapbox I'll probably get onto in a few minutes. But
there's also,
what is the solution?
Like, I think the tipping, I don't know, where did tipping actually come from? Do you know?
It's a good question.
Because my thought is that it kind of came from like the diner era. In my mind, it came from the diner era. And you tipped when someone did a good job. When you're like, yep, I liked you. You did a good job. Like, here's extra. But now like you have a crappy waiter and you're expected to still give a generous tip.
Or they're
20% or
post your receipt on Instagram.
Yeah. It's not, or these poor celebrities that like, not poor celebrities, but they go out and then they only leave like a 15% tip and people are like, oh, cheap. And it's like, hey, it's not their job. Like you still got a nice tip. It doesn't have to be 20% or over 20%.
According to Wikipedia, the practice of tipping began in Tudor England. In medieval times, tipping was a master serf custom wherein a servant would receive extra money for having performed superbly well. Okay. But that's the key. Performing superbly well.
Yeah.
Because
we're giving basically participation trophies to these people who are just pouring coffee into a cup.
Yes.
But to pick on baristas,
that's just who I frequent.
Yeah, that's who
and get the tip screen for. But what was I going to say on that note? Oh, but if I'm going to a restaurant with my toddlers who are going to throw rice literally in the air like it's raining and someone's filling my water and they're vacuuming up after my kids leave and destroy, you're going to get a tip because I'm sorry you have to clean up all this smushed rice. But
that's justified.
What do you do at a restaurant if like the service was only okay?
Because I tip accordingly.
I still do 20%. I do 20. Well,
what?
If somebody never once comes to refill our drinks and I don't hear from them again and I've needed a napkin for 30 minutes and the kids are now covered because they've used themselves as a napkin, they're getting 10. Otherwise, I just do the standard 20.
20 is like you did a really good job.
My
15 is like is my middle ground.
20 plus a few dollars is my you refill my drink all the time.
We have.
Have I?
If someone's crappy, I'm going to. But we've also
I go to the same 5 restaurants for the last decade.
But there have also been times
I don't know if
like
I branched out
where we've been extremely generous, like left 100% tip because like for some reason we felt impressed to leave a tip. Like I just have a memory of we went to Dave's parents used to have a house in Florida and they were doesn't matter, went to this restaurant and they hire because it's cheaper to fly in from out of the country and hire them to work, and they work harder and they're nicer. And she was very nice, and she like just was so sweet. And like we left extra tip there, but like if you're crappy and you don't come talk to us, you don't, you know, you're just immediately like, what's your order? And
which comes from the entitlement because we've heard people like even on a cruise ship that will be in a YouTube video who's like, this was like my dream job. And I'm like, your dream job was to work in a cafeteria with all these Americans being mean to you. Yeah. And they're just so happy to be there. And and on our cruise, we heard it. Yeah. And those people I'm willing to tip because, you know, that money is going to someone who's not like, I deserve more. It's like, you are 15. You deserve to work crappy jobs like the rest of us had to.
Yeah. And like for nothing. Because I remember my first job, I got paid under minimum wage because they hired me illegally. I was 15. I think you had to be 16 to work. I think that was what it was. But like I literally got paid like $6 an hour. Yeah. And now these little hoe bags are trying to be like, I need $18 an hour for minimum wage.
Yeah. It's like, you're still in school. You live with your parents. You don't pay your insurance. You don't pay your phone bill. Like,
But that's a whole different conversation of like not teaching responsibility to kids.
Yeah.
That's why like, even if it's raining, like today it was raining, Leo and I, we go out and she feeds the chickens and she like lets them out. She says, "Good morning, chickens." We check their water and she goes, "Good." Or uh-oh. And so like I do most of the work, but like I'm trying to teach her that repetitive, because like I have discipline problems. Like I want to teach consistency with her.
Yeah.
And so I think we just don't have that.
What a better thing though than having kids to like,
it's so
force you to make yourself be consistent. Because it's like, dang it, I don't want you to.
It's a big this way as an adult, but of all the things that are wrong with you, which I think is a really big blessing.
Yeah.
And someday I want to have a podcast about how feminism has ruined everything.
Yeah.
But seriously, like I remember thinking like I won't be able to have me time. And now I'm like, yes, me time is great.
Yeah.
But like what a gift to be able to like sacrifice a lot of things for my family, because I know like it's serving them well. And like I feel way more proud of that than any of like the stages I've ever played on. You know?
Yeah.
Of like I can sacrificially love. I think it's so good to like die to yourself all the time, which I never understood that until I was a mom. I was like, it's okay to die to yourself and be like, no, I don't want to do this.
I have the flu today, but you need to eat. Mom, I'm really hungry. And I'm like, okay, I can get out of bed. It's fine.
And it also just shows you what you can like put yourself through.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things, like I used to be like, oh, look, don't get me wrong. A lot of our shoots at Green Shoe and touring, it was exhausting. But the trade-off.
I remember both of us saying, I don't know why moms complain. We have only slept 2 hours for 6 nights in a row, but it's different.
It's different. Here's why it's different. Because I like to think, I'm like, why did I think that way? And why did it frustrate me? Like the whole coffee thing of like mom saying, like, I never get to drink hot coffee. I used to think, like, oh, well, then just prioritize yourself. Like, don't worry about it and just do it. But there's this like dying to self that needs to happen. But also, what were you saying before? I had something to add to it.
Shoot, it's gone.
Crap, what did you
dying
just say?
To self. I'm having the flu and feeding your kids. Anyways.
Crap, I lost it. But
sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's my brain. But like, it's the habit of sacrificially giving that I'm really appreciate, that I never thought of before. That like also, I don't know.
Do you want a side tangent?
I always want a side tangent.
Okay, so you talked about motherhood being a mirror. Oh, yeah. Nothing is like a more like heart racing, what are you going to say? Then the other day, my daughter had 2 cups, a bigger one and a smaller one. And she kept saying mommy. And I was like, what, Nova? I'm not talking to you. And I'm like, okay. And then she would say mommy again. And I was like, what, Nova? Because I was washing the dishes. So I was like kind of half listening. And she goes, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this mom. So she's pretending that one's the kid and one's the mom. Uh-oh. But when they can talk, it's like, what is your perception of me? Oh, yeah. How are you going to pretend that I'm the mom? And she said, Mom, help me. I'm really scared. And then the mom said, it's okay. Come stand behind me. But what if they're going to get me? She goes, then I'll just shoot them with a gun. I was like, okay, good. It's fine. It's fine.
She also says, because she said the other day, she's like, when I grow up, daddy's going to get me a gun.
I love it. She says it in public too. And I'm like, no, but this is not the territory to be saying these things. But yeah, that's just scary because they've said it before where I told you about the work one. I don't know if I told the podcast, but she said, Mom, let's play a game. And I said, okay. She said, you be Nova and I'll be Mom. And I said, okay. And she goes, she puts this bag on her shoulder. I have to go to work. And I was like, okay, have a good day at work. She says, no, you have to say, no, please don't go. So she puts on her bag again, starts from the beginning, puts on her bag. Okay, bye. I have to go to work. And then I said, no, Mom, don't go to work. She said, sorry, I have to. And then slammed the door. I was like, I don't do that. I've never done that to you. And then that was fun. But yeah, you just, when Leo starts pretending to be you, it's like, what do you think of me? What is
I see happening? It a little bit with how she has like a baby doll. She picked a baby doll out at Walmart by herself. It's this cute little black baby doll, and that's the one she wanted. Yeah. She saw it, and she was like, I must have it.
And my baby.
Yeah, and she was saying, it's my baby. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah. You can have it. But she'll kiss and go, oh, it's a boo-boo. Oh, it's a baby. It's a boo-boo. I should hug. Okay. And then we give a hug. But not that that's like how it is all the time, because I just told Irene yesterday I was way more stern than I wanted to be, but also we're in a whiny phase where like it pings my nervous system. That makes me glitch a little. But we will get through this. But I think just to kind of tie it all together, that my goal is just to not raise an entitled little turd.
Yeah.
Or a liberal. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Which is also an entitled little turd. So
yeah. I mean, I just don't want a participation trophy.
Yeah.
Helicopter kid. Like I want my kid to be safe for sure.
I hated losing. Hated it because my competitive bone, like if you just say, let's like whoever gets to the stop sign loses, I'll be running before you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
But there's something about character building when you're sitting on a locker room floor crying your eyes out because you lost. And it sucks. And it's the worst moment of your little 16-year-old life, but it does something.
If you haven't listened to last week and the week before podcast, we had Dr. Stephanie Ray, founder of BioRay, on our podcast to talk about, like, honestly, my favorite podcast so far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We talked about, how to heal the body, infertility, how to prep your body for pregnancy. Like, honestly, we covered
keeping your kids healthy.
Yeah. Keeping yourself healthy. So many topics. It was such a great episode. You should go listen to it. But we're also partners with them.
Yeah. We love their products. You can use code UTSP10 to get 10% off of your order. They are very helpful. Their website has a thing you can fill out with all your ailments. And they even have practitioners that will get a hold of you and say, hey, you probably need this. Or you can do everything yourself. But they have lines for adults, teens, and children. And everything's infants. Laid out super well.
Colicky baby, they have one for colic. So
yeah.
Okay. Go use that code and just try them out. You won't regret it. Can I go on a tangent a little bit?
Yeah.
But not really. It's kind of along the same lines.
Yeah.
Allie Beth Stuckey had a podcast that just released, I think today as we're recording it. And it was a girl talking about how she got put on antidepressants after her dad died when she was like 14 or 15. And she was on them until she was like 30 for like 15 years. And she talked about how it just made her numb and how like she basically didn't feel anything for 15 years.
Yeah.
And she was like, it took away like all the feelings that you like learn, like as you grow up, like, oh, failure, like this sucks. I need to learn how to feel this emotion, how to deal it and push through, instead of like, everything's always like, oh, you're anxious, you're depressed. Like, here's a pill, take this. Instead of like, what a skill to give your kid of like, this is really hard right now. Like I'm struggling too. Let's work through this together. Let's figure it out. But like, I think it's the same thing with not letting your kid lose. Cause like I didn't participate in sports that much. And if I did, I didn't care. Like I was never emotionally invested.
Jacob didn't care either. I'm like, what happens if you lost? He's like, I just did something else. I'm like, oh, well, I was in the locker room crying for 30 minutes. So.
My first loss was when I lost the country showdown.
Oh yeah.
And that was like my first loss. And that cut deep and it like affected my self-worth. But like in hindsight, I'm like, I wish I would have lost. I wish I would have had more opportunities to lose as a kid so I could practice.
But I wonder if you didn't care. Cause we've had conversations where like which kid, you just talk with your spouse. It's like, which kid is more like you? And I can tell that Riker, he doesn't like to lose, but he's also not competitive, which is kind of like Jake. He doesn't like to lose, but he's not going to compete with you. He's just going to go at his own pace. Where Nova and I get out of the car, we have to beat the boys. And I'm like, yeah, we do, run. So she's probably going to be more like the sports minded. But if you put a kid like Jacob in sports or Riker, which we're going to do it either way. So they have the experience of like timeliness and
teamwork,
character and whatever. But if he doesn't care, it's interesting to see how or like what activities to put him in to get that feeling of loss.
Then maybe he's in chess
because you have to lose. Oh, no,
I'm just saying like
jujitsu.
Well, I'm just saying like there needs to be like a physical failure, mental failure. I don't know. I'm just making this up. But like I feel like those are good skills. Like what better thing to learn? Like how to great, you lost the game. That sucks.
Yeah,
but like you're not paying bills. You're not out learning life skills as you're trying to like make ends meet or get through college. Not that that's worth it, but
because I've told him when he's like, well, what happens if I fall? I'm like, then you fall. But if every time you fail or you lose a game, you get a trophy anyways. When something actually hits that's big and impactful, you don't have any well, who's going to bring me my trophy now? It's like, no, rub your nose in dirt. Sorry. But you need to fail. You need to. And like, do you listen to any of like Jocko's things? I'll listen here or there. I don't listen to all of his podcasts, but he has a little clip that has gone around. And it's like, someone asked him a question and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, someone training for a marathon. It's like, oh, Jocko, what do? I calls him, I broke my leg. Paraphrasing, forgot everything, making up my own story here. But he'd come up and be like, I broke my leg. And Jocko would tell him, good, now you can practice that craft you've been wanting to practice because, you've been too busy being up and around. Or I wrecked my car. Good. Now you can get a new one. And it's very much like, well, what if I fail? It's like, good. Yeah. Then you learn what it's like and you do it again.
Yeah. And that's like, I think I know what you're talking about, where like, you just reframe it to like, okay, good. Now what's the next opportunity? Yeah. I think that's what has been nice about having so many businesses and trying so many different things. Yeah. Is that like, we kind of have this mentality of like, there's nothing we can't do. It's just a matter of like where best serves the end goal of our life.
Yeah. Because I had to work through over the last few months, like the business failed, but it didn't. Because the business is still going. The LLC is still mine. I operate under it right now. But it's an interesting pivot. And a lot of people, like, because we've talked about it, Jacob and I, the salon wasn't our identity. Yeah. I did not grow up as a little girl thinking one day I'm going to own a salon. Like, I hate management. Yeah. I don't hate peopling, but like hate managing people. I can be around people as long as I don't have to tell them what to do. But
you basically had to mother kids that you didn't want to mother.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah. But you still have to work through it. And so there's still that like feeling of failure, but then it's okay, great. Where do you go from there? And then everything pivoted and life is great. And I'm home when I want to be home and I'm working. But there are a lot of people who that one thing is their identity. So if it does fail or completely go out of business or the business catches fire, they can't compose themselves because they never had that. Then, we went from tipping to somewhere away from anyways.
No, it is the same line because there is the like, okay, people put their identity in, I am this, like I'm a ballerina or I'm like I'm a stylist, I'm a singer. And honestly, like since motherhood / like kind of stopped touring in 2020, like putting a direct halt to touring and performing where my identity was, you're a performer, you're a songwriter, and like that's where your worth is. And then the government tells you that you can't go do that and you can't make money that way. Yeah. And it adjusts I'm really glad that it did because it adjusted to where I was forced to find my worth how God framed it versus like my own worth. Even in motherhood, like motherhood's great, but that's not my identity. That's not like, I love my kid. I will do anything for her, but like, that's not my identity either. So I think we have kids who are spoiled. They get participation trophies and their identity is rooted in the wrong thing.
And they can't do grunt jobs because they deserve 20% tip on
we also not have doing anything. Influencer culture as we sit here in front of microphones. But we don't do it because we want to be influencers. No. We do it because we had struggles as motherhood.
We can't have a full conversation without someone yelling mom. Anyways, carry on.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. But, we live in this culture where every kid now wants to be a TikToker. Yeah. And
that's crazy that when you ask them in like kindergarten, they say TikToker.
Yeah. Which I like.
And TikTok gets booted out of America. And then what are you going to do?
I weigh the line of like, sometimes I'm like, I could just erase all of my existence from the internet and never think twice about it. Yeah. And then also of like, no, it's raining. So you can hear it in my, or like hitting the thing above. I go from, I have extremes. I'm like, I could just delete everything and never do anything ever again. And then I have the other side of like, no, like we're adding value. People are messaging us that they are encouraged or they think we're silly and funny. So,
but flipping back to adding value and tips to kind of tie those in. If in medieval times were of servants doing an excellent job,
I just picture the guys like the men thinking that trend that went around of like guys thinking about the
Roman Jacob every day. I didn't even have to ask him if he thought about that because he literally says it out loud to me at least once a day. So that wasn't even like how many times I text him that just to see what his response was, but I already knew his answer. Anyways, sorry. But on that too, it's like if I go get a coffee and I order, I don't know, a grande and they give me a venti cup and say, here, just a little like, I don't know, I felt like they're probably going to get a tip because that's doing above and beyond pushing a button. I never expect anyone to tip me. I had someone, she did rainbow hair a couple months ago And she was honest about it. She's like, hey, funds are tight. I really want this hair. She's like, what? And she was so kind to like ask me. She was like,
how
what?
mature too.
She said, what does tipping do for you? And I said, when I owned a business, I lived on tips because the employees made more money than me. Mm-hmm. So I did live on tips at that point, which on that note too, I had people say, I know you're not supposed to tip the owner, but I'm going to go ahead and tip you. And I was like, who said that? The owner is making the least money out of everybody Girls,
you're
here.
not supposed to tip the proprietor, says Luke Danes.
But the owner half the time makes the least money, even though they generate true. I generated, whatever. It's fine. I generated most. It's fine. I'm not bitter anymore. Anyways, I've worked through all of that.
Did you listen to that sermon that I sent you? Does anybody listen to anything I sent?
Sometimes.
I don't send you political things.
That's true. I don't think I did listen to that sermon.
It's really
good.
Send
it again and I will listen to it.
I sent it to both you and
Arnold's
Jake.
book. Huh? Once I finish Arnold's book.
Oh, jeez.
But on that, like, she asked me, she's like, what does tipping do for you? I was like, at the old salon, like, it actually helped my family. I was like, here, it's just a tip. It's just any extra you want to leave, no obligation. Like, you're fine. Mm-hmm. She spent like $340 on her hair. Wow. I did not then expect her to tip me $65, whatever 20% would have been. Like, she wanted her hair. I've been doing her hair for like 3 years. I appreciate that she's been with me through these price bumps. She lets me do almost whatever I want creatively. So I'm like, don't tip me. Just here's your price. And then she was like, okay, thank you. And she comes in about every 6 months and spends that same amount of money, and that's fine. But then I have people who come in and just get a haircut. And some of the, and everybody gets the same quality, everything, blow dry, haircut, head massage. But I will say, if I know someone habitually tips 25%, they do get a little extra head massage. But it's like, I don't expect 25%, but they just keep giving it. I'm like, well, if you're going to give it, I'm going to, like, I feel obligated to give them more because they're giving me more. So, but I would never,
normal.
But I would never like sabotage someone's drink by giving them decaf because they didn't tip me. But I feel like that's where the new culture is. Oh, yeah. I genuinely don't care if you don't tip at this stage, but you're not going to get a crooked haircut because, they're notorious for not tipping. So it's crazy.
It's a weird entitlement. Whereas jobs used to be like, I'm so excited to have this job and I'm going to do like, I'm going to be a great employee.
Yeah.
It's now an employee society where it's they're the priority and they're the drama queens about stuff.
People come up to me because we were commission based. I had people come up and say, I want 80% or I walk. And I'm like, see you later. I don't know what you think you're going to get out of me, but you're not getting 80%. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So,
because people don't think about, people don't think about how much it costs to own a business.
Yeah.
Like the taxes.
Well, even in not salon owning, but even as a renter, people say, well, if I go booth rent, I can take home X amount of dollars. And I'm like, if you think that, then you go ahead. But there was a breakdown from several of the main salon companies out there that did a breakdown and said, hey, for everyone, like, unless your commission salon is a toxic environment, you're probably taking home more during a commission salon because you get tax refund usually at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But they did a whole breakdown and said, yes, as a business owner or as a suite owner, you're probably taking home 55, 60 if you're really frugal of what you bring in. And then they did the breakdown between
But stylists aren't known to be frugal.
They're not known to be frugal. And I will tell you the amount of times I've spent money on Starbucks is a lot. And I'm probably not going to stop, so it's fine. But they'll do the breakdown of rent, products, taxes, insurance. You have to do a licensing fee. But the thing is, most people go in, they don't have insurance. They don't have an LLC. They don't have all these things set up. So it's like, okay, well, let's, which this is supposed to be on my YouTube on how to stylist. But since I keep not doing that, I'll just do it all here. Say I get bleach in your eye and you go blind and you sue me and I am only me. You can get my house. You can get my car. You can get my clothes off my back. If it's an LLC, there's a separation from my family. You don't get it. People are like, well, I don't really need insurance. I've never cut anyone's ear off before. Well, okay, so you do. Then what? You got to pay someone $1 million because people are, justifiably, if you cut someone's ear off, they should be so happy. But where do you think that money? So it's a lot of things that, I just don't need the insurance. I just don't need to save back for taxes. And then they think they're getting 80%, which that was a whole not tipping tangent, just stylist tangent. Anyways, carry on.
Any final thoughts?
If you work for tips and you expect a tip, then do something tip worthy.
Maybe leave us a comment of what industry you work in.
Yeah.
And if there's expectations of tips, or if you,
yeah,
I don't know, just like your tip experiences. Cause I've heard a lot of, you know, like, oh, you just got my oil change, and they flip the tip thing around, and it's like, what are you talking about? There was a whole trend for a while there on Instagram. And it's maybe just my algorithm, but like, because I was like, again, they listen. I was complaining about, there was somewhere, where was I? I don't go many places. I went somewhere and they flipped around the tip thing, and I like looked at the person. I wish I could hide what I thought with my face. Oh, no. But like my face was like, and then I hit no, and then got my receipt and left. And like, but also I have had it where a couple times at Starbucks when they used to do, like when you used to check out and you'd sign. Yeah. And I didn't put a tip, but I didn't put the amount, and they pre-filled it. They put it in before. But I don't know. That was back when we used to go to Starbucks and Target all the time. Yeah. So anyways, guys.
But yes, let us know, because I know this is a very hot topic, but I thought it'd be a fun one because I work in tips. Yeah. But you're someone who like would be the tipper. So I was just curious what all the opinions are.
But I also have said, like, I don't come get my hair done unless we have it in the budget for me to leave you like a hearty tip.
And I tell you not to do that because your scalp is going to get crusty.
Is my scalp crusty now?
No, it looks fine.
I just took a shower and I scratched off my nails.
Okay, good.
I've been brushing my hair, guys, every day.
There you go.
It's I also should have said I showered, but I didn't fix my hair. So you're welcome, everybody.
I did fix my hair, but then someone kept cranking up the heat to 74. So now I'm a sweaty mess.
Okay. We appreciate you guys for listening. Yeah. We will catch you next Monday.
Bye. Hopefully in different outfits.
Doubt it.
Thanks for being with us today. Follow us on Instagram at _underscore_podcast. We'd love to meet you.
Please help us out by subscribing on YouTube and leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time. Please remember this information is made available to you for informational and educational purposes only. It is in no way a substitute for medical advice.